What's bubbling, magical people? Welcome to the Witching Hour with Miss Merlin, where we like to talk about all things witchy and magical. Your one-stop source for everything spellcasting, ascension, healing, tarot, mediumship, psychic gifts, spirituality, chakras, plant medicine, healing, nature, and much, much more. I'm Kimmy, aka Miss Merlin, high priestess and shamaness, medicine woman, psychic medium, and witch extraordinaire. So let's jump on in. Today's topic is we are going through the pagan origins of what are commonly known as quote-unquote Christmas traditions. So let's get into it. First, though, I'd like to apologize for being away for the past couple weeks. I have been really sick. I'm on the mend now. And I had absolutely no energy at all. So I apologize I couldn't put the content out for you. But as you all know, I do this mostly myself. So if I'm down and out and don't have the energy, it doesn't get done. So I appreciate my returning audience. Again, thank you for your continued patience with me as always. And let's jump on into today's topic. Okay, so starting with the day of Christmas, right? December 25th. December 25th is not Jesus's birthday. Sorry to say, but it isn't. There's many other festivals and celebrations, things like that happen during December. So this day of celebration was chosen by the church to absorb all the other happenings at the time, right? Because we have Hanukkah going on at the time. We also have Saturnalia. We have Yule. All these other festivals and things like that were turned into saint celebrations, things of that nature. Now, what the church wanted to do, as we know, is just kind of cancel out everything else and take control. Like everybody believed the same thing, followed the same rules. This is how it is, and this is how it's going to stay. This way, we stay in control, and that's it. So, that day was chosen because that is also there's other festivals and things that happen around that time of year as well. Because Yule it's all about the darkest part of the year and then the sun returning. So it's a celebration of the daylight returning. So that's also why they chose it, to absorb that, right? Because Christ is known as the Son of God. So the return of that. So they're trying to just, absorb and tweak these traditions a little bit and make them seem as if they had a religious origin when they don't. Just to kind of cancel out and delete all the other celebrations that were happening at the time. It is a very, very controlling patriarchal thing, if you are honest with yourself about it. All right. So, the next one that we're going to talk about is decking the halls with boughs of holly. Holly, a big symbol of the season. Holly's a symbol of the pagan Holly King. And holly is also meant to, it's said to ward off evil spirits, things of that nature. The bright red of the berries on it are so beautiful against the winter landscape. And it has the green pointy leaves. So that's why it was said to keep away gnarly spirits, so to speak. And bringing the outdoors in, things like that, that's also very, very pagan. Christmas trees, we'll get into that also next, because that was also a pagan tradition. The evergreen was as kind of a symbol of standing up to that harshness of the winter. Because the evergreens were not touched by it. You could have all this snow on it and it was still green and still beautiful. So it became that beautiful symbol of the season. And they would deck it out with putting the holly and things like that on it. So bringing in that little bit of red to bring protection to the properties, to dress things up for Yule, to call in good spirits, ward off the bad ones. They would put other things as well on the trees to kind of deck them out. So the very first Christmas trees, of course, were also pagan. Bringing those boughs also into the house was part of that pagan tradition as well, because they revered that evergreen so much because of the symbolism it had against those harsh winters. So they would bring that with the holly berries inside and dress up the inside, their mantles, their hearths, whatever and whatnot. So as I mentioned, the trees, the evergreens especially, were all venerated as symbols of life. So the Vikings, the Saxons, the Celtic tribes of Europe, they all tied these offerings to the boughs. And like I said, they'd bring these garlands inside. And this also was a part of Saturnalia decorations. The greenery side, the circular shape of wreaths, also making the wreaths, is a symbol of protection. So Christmas wreaths are often found adorning front doors at Christmas, and that is how that started, because it's a symbol of protection. And that's what they did in the ancient times. They would form these boughs into these beautiful wreaths and put them on the doorways. Yeah, really, really beautiful. And that's where we get into the candles and lights, because of course you can't have Christmas trees without lights. So the candles again and lights representing that light that was very scarce at this time of year in this dark winter. So candles were very revered, and they were very, very carefully placed on the trees, obviously, so they don't go up in smoke, but that's where that comes from. Also, it is a pagan tradition to put the candles in the windows to light the way of the traveler home, to show the way and light the way for loved ones who may be coming visiting during the holiday season of feasting and gathering and things like that. You still do that tradition as well, starting at Samhain. So at Halloween, we put an orange candle in the, I think, is it east? I'll have to double check again. The east window to light the way for your ancestors to come home. And stretching that tradition more, you would put those candles in the front windows to light the way for your ancestors and for loved ones coming to visit during the holiday season. So also the gathering, right? We talked about the feasting and the gathering. Feasting and gathering at this time of year was also to kind of ward off that night, because the daylight was very, very short. So you would gather and celebrate with your friends and family and feast and all share the light and the warmth. Okay. That's also where the bonfires come from as well. That's another where the light, right? Light is a continuous theme. They would light these huge bonfires and have these gatherings and these celebrations. And it was for light and warmth, but also to gather and to celebrate. We still do that to this day. Often we still go with the traditions of Saturnalia, as well with the overindulging, with pleasure-ruled Saturn festivities, what happens at that time of year, right? So the overindulgence of, alcohol. It's called spirits for a reason, people. Overindulgence in food, all of those things. It was just basically a big celebration of abundance, the gratefulness of the abundance that we have, what we know is going to carry us through the winter, and the abundance that is going to return to us in spring that we are showing gratitude for now. That was the basis of the tradition. Going back to the bonfires. This is where you have the Yule log. So the Yule log was like a tradition. The family would go out and find a big piece, usually of oak or ash, and they would bring that into the home and they would light it, again, for warmth and for light. And the Yule log would burn 4 days. And sometimes they decorate it again with holly and things like that and carve symbols into it. That was also very popular as well. Adorning it with oil as well as like an offering to be made as well. Its light and a time of its burning in the midwinter suggests it also is the celebration of the returning of the power of the sun, which we already know. Its ashes were also used to scatter across the fields to bring good luck for the harvest and for abundance in the spring. It was also believed that the ashes could protect and enhance the fertility for the year ahead. So at this time of celebrating and gathering and lighting bonfires and Yule logs and indulging and offering up offerings for good fortune to come, that is where we also get into the gift giving, the presents. All right. So the people would offer up things to the gods and goddesses for abundance and gratitude and all of that stuff that they wanted to bring into their coming season, to revere certain gods and goddesses for certain things that they have brought to them over the year. The Romans at this time had the festival of Sigilleria, which is set up like a market. So they would sell like pottery figurines and wax candles. They would sell those as and make offerings to Saturn as well during that time as the time went on into Saturnalia. When you're going to visit family, usually you bring like an offering of food or some sort of dish that you can all enjoy together. So that was also like an offering, a gift, right? The gift giving, again, with the celebrations that surround the holiday season as well. And when you get together and you're having a good time around a bonfire and you're eating wonderful food with the people that you love and enjoy, you will usually start to engage in some form of merriment, right? So that's where the Christmas caroling comes from, the singing. And actually, if you trace it back, you can trace this all the way back to Viking times. Okay, it was Vassalar. That's what they used to call carolers, Vassalars. And that comes from the Norse word vassal, okay, the singers. And they would go door to door singing these carols, and then eventually the church kind of adopted this, and they took made them more into like religious type of hymns, a lot of which we're familiar with today. One of those songs in particular that has been passed down is the 12 Days of Christmas. So that in itself, that song and the things that it represents, giving gifts to loved ones, okay, that comes from pagan tradition as well. And did you also know, this is something I recently found out that I thought was very interesting. The 12 Days of Christmas is all birds. Those are all different kinds of birds, even like the maids of milking and stuff like that. I had to look it up because I didn't believe it at first. But it's true. They're all birds. Like, who wants that many birds? Okay. Somebody can quickly do the math on that if they want to. I could probably do it, but I'm too focused on other things right now. But that's a whole lot of birds because you have 12 of this and 11 of that and 10 of this and 9 of this and 8 of this. And oh my gosh, I can't even. That's way too many birds. Way too many birds. As it's starting to very lightly snow outside my window as I'm recording this. So lovely. Fits right with the mood. So kissing under the mistletoe is what we're going to talk about next. So this has origins, Druid origins, as well as Scandinavian origins as well. The Druids harvested mistletoe from oak trees to brew antidotes to poison and aid in fertility, magic, things like that. Mistletoe, for the Norse people, Scandinavian, was also sacred to the goddess Frigga, the goddess of love. And when your friends and family come over, right, what do? you embrace them, you give them a hug, you give them like a kiss on the cheek or whatever, right? So that's kind of where that tradition started from. All right. And then the kissing under the mistletoe, it was because it was hung up. The mistletoe was hung up in there also with the holly and with the pine branches and everything that were brought inside to deck out for Yule or Saturnalia or whatever was being celebrated at the time. Okay, so let's talk about Santa Claus, right? One of the main faces for the season. Now, where did that come from? Well, the church would have you believe or connect the dots to Saint Nicholas, but that also is where the church kind of like canceled out certain things, certain festivals and feasts, and made them into saints' feasts or saints' days. Okay, the naughty and nice comes from that as well, from that form of control, right? We're going to control you into how you act, but it was also, you know, if you behave, you will be rewarded, and if you don't, then bad things are going to happen. And if you look at that across Europe, we have St. Nicholas and then St. Nicholas's counterpart, Krampus. All right. So Krampus is the scarier version. You know, naughty children can be hit with switches of birch or carried off into the hills for who knows what. But that's where that comes from. Also in Scandinavian tradition, children would leave offerings out to Odin as well, and Odin would reward good children as well. There's also plenty of other pagan candidates for the original Santa Claus, Father Christmas, whatever you want to call it. Okay. The figure of Saturn himself is one, as is the god Odin, who is reputed to drive a sleigh drawn by reindeer. We also have some female candidates in there as well. All right, so we have La Befana, is the kindly Italian witch who delivers presents by broomstick, and that's also naughty or nice. She delivers presents to the good children. And then we also have Frau Holle, who gave women gifts at the winter solstice. So any of these pagan characters has very much influenced the Santa Claus that we know today. Also, the leavings of offerings of cookies and milk was a tradition of leaving mince pies and a glass of milk for Santa Claus was also rooted in Scandinavia for making sacrifices to mark the coming of spring. So Santa Claus flying with reindeer also has the roots in Scandinavian mythology as well, because as we know, reindeer are very, very northern creatures. They migrate across the tundra. Interestingly enough, too, every depiction that you've ever seen of Santa's reindeer, right, they all have antlers, correct? Yes. Well, it's only the females who keep their antlers all year round. So technically, Santa's reindeer are all females. But there was a legend that the Norse god Odin would fly through the sky during Yule celebrations, and as we talked about before, giving gifts to good families, you know, and people would leave offerings for them, but he would fly through the sky on his 8-legged horse, Sleipnir. Okay, now this is also where we get the stuffing of stockings, where that comes from. Because on these nights, when Odin would fly through the skies, children would place their boots filled by the fireside with carrots and straw and sugar and things like that for Odin's flying horse Sleipnir to eat. And Odin would reward those children and replace the food with gifts or candy. So there's where the stockings comes from as well, from the boots, leaving the boots. And it was the gifts for the horse, Sleipnir. leaving that out for him as well, which is really interesting because today, many children leave carrots out for Santa's reindeer. So I really hope you guys enjoyed learning about the true pagan origins of some of the things that we still carry out and do to this day, which are really important. And no matter which way you celebrate, it is always important to know the origins from where things come from and have a respect and a reverence for that. So again, thank you all so much for joining me. Just a little bit of a shorter one today. Again, I'm still getting some of my energy back from being sick. I do apologize. I'm wishing you all so much love, and I hope you have a beautiful week. Remember to always make your own magic. I'll see you guys soon. Stay magical.